Sarabrin, and I was the coordinator for this particular Zoom meeting for the cycling and infrastructure in Nanaimo and region. And so, Catherine, would you start the proceedings? And I do want to let everyone know beforehand that this is going to be recorded, and you should be seeing the little red light up in your left-hand corner. If you wish not to be on or visible, then I would suggest that you stop your video. Okay, and I'll hand it over to Catherine.
Welcome to the first of the Climate Solution Series from the Nanaimo Climate Action Hub. My name is Catherine Hazel, and I'm a member of the Action Hub organizing team, as well as one of your hosts this evening. First, let me begin by acknowledging that this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territories of the Snuneymuxw, the STZ Eminent, and Sna-Nawas peoples. Tonight, we will be looking at transportation, focusing on cycling and infrastructure. The aim of this event is to learn about current policies on cycling and infrastructure in Nanaimo and the RDN, and share examples of best practices in BC and a vision of our future. Our goal is to build our capacity to act and help us support our municipal officials in meeting our local, provincial, and national greenhouse gas requirements. We have presentations from the city's Transportation Planning Department and the Executive Director of the BC Cycling Coalition, followed by local cycling representatives. You will have an opportunity to ask questions and to discuss your ideas in a breakout group session, after which we will share our key ideas. And now for some housekeeping items. Please mute yourself during the presentations and use the chat feature for any questions. During the breakout group session, please unmute yourselves for the discussion. I will now hand this back over to Shelley.
Hey, thank you very much, Catherine. And I'm delighted to see so many people who are interested in developing a better idea of the policies that we have in the city and in the region, and that we have an interest in organizing ourselves and becoming advocates for cycling in Nanaimo. Tonight, I'm going to be hosting for the presentation section of the event. And as I said, my name is Shelley Sarabrin, and I'm also part of the organizing team on the Nanaimo Climate Action Hub, which is a very a young group and always interested in having more people involved. It's exciting again as to see so many people, and I wish who wish to advocate for cycling and infrastructure. And as Catherine pointed out, to reach our GHG goals, our greenhouse gas emission targets, I should say, and as we, with the cliche that's coming up over and over again, to build back better. So let's start out with a quick poll question. And so if Bill, you could set that up onto the screen. So it's asking you what or how do you use your bike? You can choose as many as are applicable to you. And I'll give you a minute to do that. And people have already started. That's great. Awesome. Keep going. And if you can see that you can slide down, or not slide down, there's a bar that slides down. So there's more options than just actually visible. So you can pull down the slide, the scale. And we're getting about 3/4 finished. Nice to see 63 people attending. Okay, so we're almost done, almost at totals. Just another 30 seconds and I'll end the poll. Okay, so it looks like most people have put in the ways they've used or they use their bike. And so we have the most people use it as exercise or recreation, alone or with a friend. We also have at 88%. The second most, it looks like, for shopping, which is awesome because I do that too, at 50%. The next one is 34% who commute to work and school. That's fantastic. I also wonder if it's year round. That would be even better. 25% are mountain bike, use the mountain bike trails. That's great. We have 22% that ride an e-bike, which is something that a lot of people are taking on right now and making much more popular. Just to remind you to mute yourself at this point. And then we come to, let's see, 16% for all my travel. Oh, that's fantastic. And so we have 3% who don't ride a bicycle, and I wonder why that might be. And then 16% who cycle tour. That's something that seems to be a growing area, and for ecotourism as well. And then BMX parks. So that's great. Awesome. So that gives us a good scope as to what people are doing right now. So that's fantastic. All right. So I'll, if we could stop the sharing part. Okay. That's great. All right, so we are, with that in mind, how all of us are using our bikes in a vast number of ways, which is really good to see. I'd like to invite the first presenter to come up to speak, and that person is Jamie Rose, and he works for the engineering department at the City of Nanaimo, and he's our transportation manager. And I'm not sure, maybe Jamie can say, he's going to be screen sharing, so we have it on the screen. And they're on his team, he also has Madeline Coe, who is the active transportation coordinator for the City of Nanaimo. And I believe she is here in the capacity to take part and be in the breakout group. So Jamie, you have between 7 and 10 minutes, and I'll set the timer. I'm going to be giving you a little sign at 30 seconds left if you come to that point, and we'll start from there. Okay, and please go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, so I guess just a quick double check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting us, and looking forward to future discussions about different facets of transportation and how we can have some really positive impacts on climate action and improving our environment. I do have a quick slideshow here, and I thought might as well start with the brass tacks of it, and that's the fact that transportation in the Nanaimo region definitely is a significant contributor to GHG production, among other things. So we've got 2010, 2017 numbers here, and there is obviously a growth. We have a growth in the region, so not unfortunate, but it's not surprising to see a rise. I would be curious. I haven't seen per capita numbers, so that would be very interesting to see how we're doing. On the left side of your screen, I do have a capture from our transportation master plan, which is essentially our transportation growth management strategy. And within that, we're looking at finding ways to encourage people to find more sustainable and preferable modes of transportation. We don't have a tremendously high active transportation split at this point in time in comparison to some of our colleagues around the southwestern part of BC and northwest of the States. But we, with the very positive and supportive arena we're working in these days, we are definitely making some serious progress. So as I said, we do have some goals laid out in the transportation master plan. We also have some priorities laid out in our official community plan from 2008. So these are obviously slightly dated documents. We're actually going through the reimagined process right now, which I'm sure you're all aware of, to update the official community plan and to hone our transportation planning visions within the focus of active transportation. One of the really pivotal things that I think highlights is highlighted through these two documents is the focus on land use planning. A well-planned municipality or region with well-appointed land use can far more seamlessly transition to active transportation. If we have some slightly more dense land use, it's much easier for pedestrians and cyclists to move around. If people have access to the essential services, whether it's food or medical care or schools and work, there becomes a much lower reliance on personal vehicles. And so Nanaimo is quite unique in its lineal nature. So within the two plans, we've identified areas, we refer to them as either urban nodes or mobility hubs, where we focus our growth and development and densification with the aspiration of creating these sort of live, work, play communities where people won't have a need or have less of a need for a vehicle. But we still have the bridging between the 6, potentially 7 locations. Just to give an example, we've got 3 of the sort of more focused areas within the sort of central area of Nanaimo are downtown, the university, and the hospital. And it kind of becomes a bit of a mobility triangle almost, with people moving from downtown, from the seaplanes, from the ferries out to the university, and then up to the hospital and throughout. And so we need to find ways to encourage people to make those trips without using a car. And for the most part, those trips are distances that are actually quite
corridors.
Pardon me?
Questions will be asked afterward, after the presentation. If you would like to put your question in at the chat, that'd be great. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
Not a problem. So this, as an example, is an area where the cycling connection is really quite achievable. The grades are reasonably soft. The distances are quite manageable. I think the biggest distance would probably be about 5, maybe 6 kilometers between any 2 points. But the challenge we're facing, or we have been facing up until the last maybe 7 years or so, is we haven't got any really improved or enhanced facilities. So no cycle lanes, no raised cycle tracks. And really the only multi-use paths are the ENN trail or the Parkway trail. And so the maps that I've brought up here are a reflection of things that we've been able to achieve in the last 7 years or so, maybe 8, because we did get a bit of a head start despite the adoption of the transportation plan in 2014. So on your left is the aspired cycling network improvements in the short term. And then on your right is all of the facilities that we've actually completed to the end of last year. And so, you know, what we refer to as an improved cycling facility is, as I said, either a marked bike lane or a buffered bike lane like we have going up by the hospital, or I think that captures all. There is one that's just sort of tailing off on the right side down onto the Portlands, and that's a fairly robust multi-use trail. And so we're not quite as far along as we would have liked to have been looking forward 7 years ago, but we have made some quite significant progress in the last 4 or so years. Between Bowen Road and 3rd Street and, 2nd Street and Pine and Bruce. And it's actually not reflected on the map on the right, but just towards last year, we finished the last, one of the last pieces of the Harewood Bikeway, which was a phased project that spanned probably close to 7 or 8 years, which creates a connection from Comox along Pine onto Bruce and all the way down to, I believe it goes down to 8th now to the New Quality Foods. And so then we've got a bunch of portions of connections east and west. So we've got 2nd and we've got a portion of 4th, which we're going to be moving through the remainder up over the hill to McCleary and then down Albert to Dunsmuir in the next couple of years as well. So there's a bunch of a significant amount of background research and data gathering that we're continuing to build on. The transportation master plan was founded on the land use, and then sort of envisioned these connections based on sort of speed and distance that a pedestrian or a cyclist could travel, and then sort of looking at where transit could fit in to continue to bridge those gaps to capture the distance or to cover the distance. And so at the time, it was really quite cumbersome to gather actual information, but as the world evolves and as technology advances, we've actually been able to utilize some really cool tools. In particular, we are starting to look at using Strava as a mechanism for reviewing where people are actually traveling now. It's not a predictive model, it's more of a user as and when or as and where tool. We've also got some data we're piloting through a company called Streetlight, which also does similar data captures. It's more pedestrian and vehicle oriented, and we're still working with that. We're not quite satisfied with how that's working, but it's definitely giving us some opportunities to see into things and sort of see the Strava in particular has shed some light on areas where there aren't any actual facilities of any description right now, but we're seeing where people are going, and it's sort of helping us look at where we should prioritize the gaps in the system. And then through Reimagine, we're getting a huge amount of feedback about what the community is hoping to see, and where some of the some of the good things we've been doing, but also some of the things that are gaps in our network. So I keep going here. One of the examples that I thought would be really nice to share with you is our Bowen Road project, which we finished up just late last year. And I'll try and wrap this up quickly. So, so this was actually an example of a utility and paving project that we managed to incorporate a pretty amazing cycling facility. And so with a little bit of reassigning space for travel lanes and minimizing the space for medians, we were actually able to develop a protected, grade separated cycle track, which hopefully will be more of a vision for the rest of the corridor. One of the other things that I think is quite important when we're talking about getting mode shift and getting people out of personal vehicles is really starting at the ground level and encouraging kids and giving kids the tools to the life skills to be able to travel throughout our community, either walking, biking, or with transit. And so we've been working with the school district now for about 5 years to get more and more information and curriculum into the schools, and also to help the different schools sort of address some of their concerns around the actual school sites, and try and take away some of the barriers that are in place that are hampering that. And so I did get a couple of your questions. I don't know if you guys would like me to kind of go through, or
yeah, we could turn to the question period right now, and so I'll start the time for that. And if you want to address those questions that you have, and if anyone else has any other questions, could you put them into your or into the chat box? And I can see the chat box, so I can pick a couple of questions after that. So Jamie, if you want to go ahead with the questions that you have answered right now.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Just
Thanks.
see if I can. Okay, so I had a question about the connection for Arbor Park as part of the Boxwood connector. And so I was hoping I could get a map incorporated into my presentation, but unfortunately it wasn't available before I wrap this up. And so Mountain Vista and its extension are not going to directly connect with vehicles to Boxwood, but it is going to connect directly to Rosstown, immediately adjacent Boxwood. And so we felt that was a direct connection to Boxwood. We were concerned was going to create some undesirable effects immediately on Mountain Vista, but with the very close connection on Rosstown opposite Whitney, we felt that was still a fairly well connected road network, but had the optics of not being direct, so people wouldn't be using it as a shortcut route. But what we will be doing is providing a multi-use path connection between Mountain Vista and Boxwood. So there will be a walking, biking trail connection between the two.
And is there another question? We have enough time for probably one more question, and then there's a couple from the chat box.
Sure.
Is there any, or do you want me to just go to the chat box? Because we could do that too.
I'll just try and quickly throw some of these out quickly. So examples of good infrastructure, Bowen, I would look at. E&N Trail is a pretty good one. And the soon to be completed Metro. There was also a question about maintenance and what can be done to, if we see something, I think was the question.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And what I was going to say is, if you have the Nanaimo Recycles app, if you go down into it, there actually is a report a problem feature. And so you can actually take a picture and send it into the app, and it'll be directed to the right staff person to address.
Okay.
And then there was, yeah.
Okay, maybe Madeline can put that into the chat so that we have a record of it. Could we do that?
I can even send you a PDF of the slide deck afterwards, which have it all in it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much, Jamie. There is one question here about bicycle racks. Is there going to be more of this bicycle racks being put around the city so that they're safe for locking? Because a number of people are saying that they don't necessarily go out using their bicycle because they don't know if it's going to be there when they get back after they've bought their groceries or whatever.
Yeah, so end of trip facilities is a big conversation across the board, and whether it's bike racks or change facilities or things of that nature, it is something we need to definitely up our game on. It's there are a few of them out there, but again, with so many things, the choice and the selection is growing day by day, and so we are starting to look at where we can fit them in. I was at a conference a couple of years ago and saw some just amazing examples that City of Toronto is using. So You know, essentially you exchange one car parking spot for, I think it was like a 10 or 12 stall bike block up, and some of them had sort of shelters over them for weather protection, and some of them had complete surrounds. There are some really good examples up at VIU of quite robust, almost bike dog houses that are probably the most secure that I've seen. And so, you know, when we're talking about theft or things like that, it's a really frustrating to think that that's the barrier we need to overcome, and it's a bit of a challenge, but we just need to start working on it and build some confidence.
That's great. There's a couple of questions about the Strava logging in for rides. Can you just 10 seconds talk about Strava, and is it anonymous? Can you provide anonymous data?
The information we get is completely scrubbed. So it's you know, if we look at sort of at a street level numbers, it won't show below a certain number of pings on it, and so I honestly, that's sort of outside my knowledge base, but I've heard the dissertations about how they scrub it and they clean it, and it's, you know, it's randomized to the point that it can't be traced in any way. So
okay, our time is up for questions. Unfortunately, we've got some questions about improvements at SD 68, any specific ones. If we have enough time at the very end, maybe we can address. There's another one about riding along Northfield, and notice that bike lanes are always full of gravel and grit, and maybe how can we maintain them, or do the when the street cleaners come through, how do we make sure that the bike lanes are also cleaned? And another one about converting pedestrian crosswalks to include cyclists, and noticing that on 2nd Street near Buttertub's Marsh. And is it just the cost of it, or is there more to it? And another one for signage, but we'll have to probably maybe we'll have enough time at the end. We'll get through the presentations, and then we can maybe have another Q&A. Would you be able to stay on, Jamie? Okay. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Great. I can definitely stick around, and if not, I can get an email or something of the questions afterwards, and
you can see
with the slide deck.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And you can see in the chat what the variety of questions are so far, if you'd like to peruse them. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Jamie, for giving us an overview of what Nanaimo and the outskirts of Nanaimo are doing, having connections between hubs, looking at the mobility triangle, and street light as being one of the mechanisms for finding gaps. The great things on Bowen Road that are developing, and your continuing work with School District 68. Okay, so now I'd like to invite the next speaker. This is Colin Stein, and he's originally from Toronto. He has lived in BC since 1995 and served as Executive Director of the BC Cycling Coalition since January 2020. Colin previously worked for Vancouver's Hub Cycling and with the former Vancouver councillor, Gordon Price. He's now writing a book about the city's colorful history of cycling advocacy. So Colin, if you could upload your screen sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Shelley. Let me just bring this up right now.
Okay.
And
awesome.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. So thanks, Shelley and Catherine, Heather, and everybody else who really, actually, everybody who's shown up tonight. It's fantastic to see so much interest in cycling, specifically as related to the climate crisis that is pending. I'm going to go through these slides rather quickly, hopefully clearly and succinctly, but Shelley has a copy of this presentation, and if there's any questions, I pumped my email address in the chat. I'm going to bring it up on the very last slide as well, so feel free to contact me afterwards, but I'll get right into it. The BC Cycling Coalition was founded in 1998 as a member-based nonprofit society, a coalition of coalitions, as it was called at the time, to provide a voice for cycling in the province of BC. Not just to basically work with the province and sometimes lobbying the province, but also working with all the local groups that exist across the province. The goal is to make active transportation safe, practical, and enjoyable for everyone in BC. You can see our vision and mission on our website, BCCC, that's BCC.bc.ca. It's a bit of a mouthful. What do? We deliver education programs to the public to promote cycling and safe road use. And our programs include Bike Sense, a publication you may have seen in the past, as well as Kids on Wheels, early childhood education, kids on balance bikes, basically. But what we also do is we work with members, our member organizations like these that you see on the screen, partner organizations, community stakeholders, provincial government ministries and agencies like ICBC, to influence the changes that we think will make active transportation and mobility safer, more equitable, and more accessible in the province. So that includes public campaigns and, again, lobbying for changes to legislation, regulations, infrastructure investments, including those that trickle down, so to speak, to municipalities or need to be applied to by municipalities, people like Jamie and Madeline. So infrastructure investments, policy strategies, and then, of course, also celebrating the good stuff that happens after all this effort. And that effort often comes from, or let's just say the real effort comes from municipal staff, engineers and planners, but supported by and sometimes helpfully pushed along by advocacy groups. So as Shelley mentioned, I'm just relatively new, or maybe it wasn't clear that I'm new just in 2020 to the BC Cycling Coalition. It was a tough year last year, but a critical milestone year, not just for COVID, a lot of lessons learned over the last 20 plus years for us. Changes at our board. It's a working board, they're very active. We added some more board members, developed a 5-year strategy, and one of our landmark programs is Bike Sense. So here are the sponsors of Bike Sense. So bottom row, second from the left, City of Nanaimo. So thank you, Madeline, again, and Jamie for that support. So what about Nanaimo? First of all, it's the city that comes up all the time in my conversations with friends about where to live, where to move, what's happening, all the good stuff in BC. There seems to be a lot of great buzz about Nanaimo, and lots of good things from an advocacy perspective were also happening up until a couple of years ago, trying to push for the types of all ages and ability cycling you see up on the screen. There was the Greater Nanaimo Cycling Coalition, so there was a very active group, about 450 members at its height, but fatigue. It's a common thing in nonprofits, especially in cycling advocacy groups. Fatigue is a real thing because there's not a lot of money and there's so much stuff to do. One member, former member, told me just a year ago, our group still discusses the possibility for advocacy, but we agree that having an advocacy group in Nanaimo is a futile effort. I personally do not agree, and I hope none of you do either, because I think it's time. So that was, it was a tough time, about 2017, longtime residents, you'll remember, some strange stuff happening in City Hall at times. One of the things that happened that was really tough was the cancellation of a Transportation Advisory and Planning Committee. Well, 2 separate committees, Transportation Advisory and then a Planning Committee. Those were canceled. Plus Bike to Work Week funds at that time were canceled. School district funds for bike to school programs were also either canceled or never came to fruition. So it was tough from what I understand. This is me relaying a third hand, but these days we have a new administration. There's the 2014 Nanaimo Transportation Master Plan, which Jamie referred to. It's a little bit on the old side, but it's still very relevant, and it provides a very helpful land use hierarchy and supportive vision, which I will get up on the screen right now. So Jamie showed it on one of his slides. Pedestrians first, then cycling, then transit, and everything else. And are we there? Are we there yet? Well, no. And there's some points there on the ambition at City Hall. And of course, we want to help get there. So the question is, can staff do it all alone? or could they use some help? I think that's really the question that underlies a lot of advocacy work in cities and towns and regions and province overall. We push the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and we know they can't do it alone. So how can we offer our help? So here's what we think we can do and what we have been doing. And so I can speak to some examples. So help staff and council understand the local demand. So what you good folks want and would like to see. So to participate in consultations, to share assessments of what's going on in the city, because we don't know at the BCCC. Provide feedback on what's working, what isn't. So that can be what we might call air cover. So the city, Jamie and Madeline and the other engineers and planners want to do lots of good stuff, but they need help promoting it and talking to the public about it. That's what advocacy groups often do, especially for all ages and abilities projects. However, back of house, so to speak, the friendly pressure, we try not to kill the relationships by being the old school table pounding activists, because that doesn't help. It's a new era. And this is all across the province, all across North America, friendly pressure informed by evidence. And really, it just comes down to that. Focus on the relationship, focus on the facts, and focus on moving forward and the problems that can be solved together. And then supporting delivery of public programs that may not fully be within the realm of the city to do by themselves. And this is often what happens. This is what we do. And then sharing best practice, what's happening elsewhere in BC. Thank you, Shelley. Here's some quick examples. I won't go through it, but just to say there's challenges in lots of cities and towns that look very similar to Nanaimo. And then the opportunities are the things that we're actually doing, either from existing advocacy groups, say, for example, in Nelson, where there's a very strong presence, and of course, Vancouver, very strong presence. And they're doing other things. And what that does is try to address the challenges. And FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I would say that's present in some places like City of North Vancouver and in Nelson, as opposed to, we don't know yet in Kamloops and in Vancouver. It's pretty much in the, in the zone, but sometimes maybe people feel like we've done enough and we're all done, and we're really not. So I would be happy to discuss all these examples on another call, another time. These are 5 of our top 10 priorities. And so Jamie, you might remember this, you emailed this to myself, and when we met a year ago, you said some really optimistic things. And this truly, now the top 5 things here is not what you can do and not what's happening in Nanaimo, but if we just replace 2 words, this is what we're doing at the BC Cycling Coalition. So it very much reflects Jamie and team's supportive and positive comments and their intentions. And so all we want to do is do the next couple of things for Nanaimo to work with you on these items. Bike Nanaimo is just pulled out of thin air. It's a good idea, maybe there's many, of course, but we need people to be organized, to give commitments, to help form an organization, to work on a few things, to build slow, and then eventually aim high, but you start small and essentially engage the public. This is a great start, but a few dollars are needed, lots of bodies are needed, lots of great ideas, and this is how we want to help. Sorry for the lightning round, but I know I'm out of time. That's how you can reach me. And if, Shelley, if there is time for questions, you emailed me a few ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Colin. Again, another great presentation. I know the timing is kind of shrunk, but we're not a conference, we're a Zoom call, and these great folks who have been are giving up part of their evening. It's great to hear the things that you're doing in advocacy and how it's being looked at all over the province, and how you're making a difference in cycling in all kinds of different ways for all ages and abilities, and how you're working with the city of Nanaimo. That's just a great comfort to me, and how it's important for us to let the city know what works, what doesn't work, and to assist them, be an ally for them, and then together we can work and move mountains as there are in Nanaimo.
I'll just share one. There was one question you sent across, and I know maybe I'm completely done here, but one of the questions you sent was who was responsible for maintenance of the various trailways, and how can everyday citizens be involved? The parkway trails, numerous sections and states of disrepair. So just in some cases, and maybe everybody knows this, it's not always the city. Sometimes it's the regional district. And then it just prompted the idea for me of something that often comes up, but not everybody knows about, which is then highways and who's responsible for highway maintenance. And I just wanted to share one link in chat, which is to the maintenance contractors all across the province for different regions. So if it does come off trail and becomes like a highway issue, I do encourage people to reach out to the local maintenance contractors. But unless there was anything else, Shelley, I'll end there.
Okay, so you'll be able to stay for the rest of the
Yes.
evening, and okay, that's great. All right, I'd like to move on to the next presenter, and that is Dan Peter. And Dan is a teacher at NDSS. So we're going to get some input from the school district in terms of teacher or a teacher who usually uses his bike or always uses his bike to go to school, lives in Pacific Gardens, co-housing. He proudly doesn't have a car. Instead, he cycles to work, to shop, and to play. His son Gabby rides with him in a bike carrier, and Moto car sharing fulfills all his other travel needs. So Dan, if you could
Yep, I'm right here.
come along. All right. Oh, wonderful. The whole family. Awesome.
Yes.
Go ahead. You have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Gabe, what do you like, riding in a car or do you like riding in the bike carrier? What do you like better?
Bike carrier
Oh yeah, why is that?
because it's too hot in the car.
It's too hot in the car. You know, he gets car sick. But in the bike carrier, lots of fresh air, right? And you get to see Daddy working hard and staying in shape. And recently, you've been going to daycare in a different mode of transportation. How have you been getting to daycare?
On my bike.
With your bike. Does your bike have training wheels? No, your bike, oh, you're only 4.5 and you can bike all the way to daycare. That's great, but you need some help I push you a bit up the hills, right? Yeah, because Nanaimo's really hilly. That's a little problem for the little ones. But yeah, that's great. And so we're a family of cyclists. We live in Harewood, and you know, it's all just like we saw before in the presentation. Everything is accessible by bike. Miriam, what sort of bike do you ride?
I normally ride an electric bike, which is I'm waiting for my new one
Yeah.
to arrive in a couple of weeks. So excited.
Yeah. So and I ride just a normal bike. I go to school NDSS. You know, I bring my bike inside every day, and yeah, it's for shopping and stuff. Maybe we'll say bye to these guys.
You want to say bye again?
Bye bye.
Bye.
Going to bed now. Bedtime.
That was his cameo there. So
Awesome.
thanks. So yeah, we I bike using the bike trailer for grocery shopping, and a lot of people don't realize that, you know, you can do most of your car needs with a bike trailer. I hope to see more bike trailers in the future for, you know, taking kids around and also for the shopping needs. And of course, panniers, just bags in the back, work as well. I just want to say a few things as a cyclist. I find that people are fairly courteous on the road. I bike every day. I've only been yelled at like maybe 2-3 times in the past 4 years. That's pretty good. Only been killed almost once. And the only thing, so my suggestion is, what about the Idaho stop? I know that's probably a provincial matter. Maybe the BCCC has thought about this or advocated for it, but at least having it so that stop signs, cyclists can just yield, and if there's no traffic, then just go. And the other thing is crosswalks. All right, just finish with this. The other thing is crosswalks. It'd be great if cyclists could also cross on crosswalks and that traffic would stop for us. That would make our cycling lives much better. So that's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. That was really exciting to see your son prefer cycling, and so he's really into the cycling culture that you've provided for your whole family, and it's great to see that a whole family can get along in Nanaimo with a bicycle, and thank you also for pointing out some of the things that we need to look at in terms of how cyclists cross through crosswalks and etc. So thank you very much, Dan. Okay, we have our next presenter, is Susan Ashkin. And she is a longtime resident of the Nanaimo region, having moved here more than 30 years ago. She has a science degree from the University of Guelph. She's an avid cyclist and outdoors person, as well as a mom. Recently retired, she now mostly cycles for recreational purposes, right? Recreational purposes and running local errands. In the past, Susan commuted to work via bike through her travels. She has cycled in different parts of the world. So Susan, do you have screen sharing?
I am having a couple of issues.
Okay.
I just minimized you, but I've lost my whole screen here. So just trying to get it back. Okay, got it. Okay.
Got it.
We're
Okay.
good. Technology is our friend.
All right.
Okay.
I just like to think of
On
that.
to screen sharing,
Okay.
hopefully.
Okay, don't worry. I have a joke, a cycle joke. Why did the bicycle go to the psychiatrist? It had psychological problems. Hee hee. Anyway, okay, we are up. Sorry. All right, I will start your 3 minutes. Oop.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shelley, and to our fellow
And-
presentators
All right,
and,
Susan? Uh-oh.
and all
Am
the
I-
public that are there. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. My connection is a little bit unstable right now, so I'm hoping that it's going to hold off. You have 3 minutes, and please go ahead, and I'll give you the 30-second remaining warning.
Super. Thank you very much, Shelley. I hope you and everyone else can hear me, and I welcome this opportunity to talk to the group. I think I'm talking to a lot of the converted, having heard that 80% of you are recreational riders and almost 50% of you are riding for shopping. So that's a lot of people on their bikes. And when I think of cycling in this area, I think, wow, it's great. We have so many good things going for us. We have fantastic weather. We can cycle a lot of months of the year, and everybody that's on a bike is not in a car. The whole point, I think, one of the driving forces of this discussion today is reducing greenhouse gases. Riding a bike definitely does that. So in Nanaimo, I categorize very briefly, and some of this has already been covered, the options we have. We have, in terms of cycling infrastructure, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly is also known as an accident waiting to happen. So let's start on the positive. The good, we have some nice bike lanes, separates the bike from vehicle traffic, gives us a nice, quiet, linear place to go. Shot number 1 shows you that easily. Now, hopefully I can get to shot number 2 because you guys are covering my, see if I move that. Again, we also have off-road. Cyclists don't always stick to the pavement. And we know that around here. There's tons of great places to ride off-road, no cars. If there's access, if we can get on it, we will go. We also have a recent addition to our cycling infrastructure, a brand new paved section along Cedar Road, courtesy of the Cowichan Regional District. They poured out the pavement for us. It didn't take them long. I don't think it cost a lot, but they have made cycling on Cedar Road a charm. There is now, I think it's about 5 feet wide strip of new pavement, gets the bikes away from the cars. This is our ideal situation. These are good. Sadly, on 2 in the city of Nanaimo, even if there aren't designated painted strips, we still have quiet streets, signage, low speed, a grate that is bike friendly, perfect for cycling. Doesn't have to be anything special. It just has to have slower moving traffic and room on the road for the bike. The pedestrian is happily on their sidewalk. We now come to what I unfortunately call the bad. Share the road. Okay, so there's the cyclist, and as you can see, he's jumped into the trees for cover. Same with the sign. This is all too often what I encounter when I cycle in Nanaimo. Not every day, but a lot of times 80–90% of the drivers are really good, but the odd one really doesn't think you belong on the road, and you do end up in the ditch or taking evasive action. We also have a newly redesigned intersection, Northfield Road, going onto the Old Island Parkway. Northfield Road here is heading south. Now we have told cyclists and the pedestrians at the corner here and on the island here, cars come first, you must stop. There is no, how do you cross this road safely? Would you put your 12-year-old on a skateboard, walk to the school or walk to the plaza? I don't think so. You think he's going to be able to judge the speed of the car that has no requirement to stop unless potentially see somebody at this corner? Not a cyclist though. Doesn't stop for the cyclist. They have to stop for the car. The car is speeding up as it enters the intersection and accelerating to get onto the parkway. Formerly, cars slow down because this merge lane did not exist. We have made what was once a safe situation unsafe. This is a bit of an accident waiting to happen. Again, we have another area in Nanaimo. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this. This is Hammond Bay Road descending down into Departure Bay. Okay, pedestrians have already said, I'm not going on that road. I'm taking this mud path. I'll be safe here. Cyclists are crushed up against the barrier and the road and the cars coming up behind. What do they do for the car that's not stopping? They are literally death-defying situation. They're not safe here. This is what happens when when cyclists and cars collide. Usually the car is okay. Sadly, the cyclist is not. This man died far too young, hit by a car because basically he didn't see him. And when you don't see a cyclist, this is up in a street in Nanaimo. When you don't see a cyclist, the cyclist pays the price. A cyclist dies. Cars and cyclists, not always the best combination. People will ride their bikes. People want to ride their bikes, but they need areas to go. We'll ride uphill. We need signage. We need possibly bumper strips on the highways in and out of town. This will create a safe zone. There's no way to get in and out of Nanaimo on a bike unless you ride on the highway. How about some rumble strips? Well, I know my time is up. I shall move on to, I believe the last slide is like, happy cycling, everybody, and stay safe out there. Thank you.
Shelley, you're muted.
Thanks. Thanks. That was the first time I muted myself. So thank you, Erin. Thank you so much, Susan. That was a great description of the good, the bad, the ugly. Wonderful to mention the cedar separated section for bikes, Nanaimo's areas where there's slower moving traffic and room for the bikes and proper signage. And then also what we need in terms of educating the car drivers, other vehicle drivers like truck drivers to know what to look for, etc., and also to set up the situation so it is a safe area for cyclists and for cars so that accidents aren't waiting to happen. So thank you again, Susan. Our next speaker or presenter is Joel Canfield. And he's a leader of the long-running GoByBike.bc Team Copenhagen. And I was once on Team Copenhagen. Team Copenhagen is devoted to bringing world-famous, safe, and proven Copenhagen cycling infrastructure to British Columbia. And Joel is an early adopter of the e-bike. So, Joel, you have screen sharing ability, and so you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, so is my mic working?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let's see if we can get this. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you should be seeing the Cycling Embassy of Denmark webpage on the screen share. As Shelley indicated, she's a past member of Team Copenhagen. Team Copenhagen started out as a school district 68 cycling team. Of course, when School District 68 banned the use of e-bikes and bicycles over a decade ago, we decided to rebrand. And since I had been fortunate enough to go to a City of Nanaimo presentation that had the infrastructure engineer from Copenhagen actually presenting here in Nanaimo, that's how I learned about the wonderful infrastructure in Copenhagen. And so later my wife and I actually traveled there to look firsthand at what they've done. So I would highly recommend that people take a look at the Cycling Embassy of Denmark site. It's now called cyclingsolutions.info. And I can drop that into the chat. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through that. So I figured I just show a few pictures. Hopefully that's showing the full picture on your screen. This is from one of our one location we visited in Copenhagen. This is a 2-story shopping mall. So it is bigger than any shopping mall we have in Nanaimo. And the reason I took a picture of this particular entrance is that this is the main entrance in. Instead of a huge asphalt parking lot, even the section that would be enclosed parking is devoted to bicycles. And you'll notice that there's tons of bicycles parked right there. So the way they plan things, even a huge North American style shopping mall, parking for cars is an afterthought, completely opposite to the way we do it here. And so everywhere you go in Copenhagen, there are wide open spaces. There's the train station, there's cycling racks everywhere. There's cargo bikes. Almost everyone travels by cargo bike or bicycle or skates. The Serpent is a cycle-only path. You'll notice that they have e-bikes that they set up in 2015. Those are for unhealthy tourists to use, not for the locals. So at any rate, we'll wrap it up there. We'll just show you all the things you can do if you don't have lots of pavement. And then we're back to Nanaimo, showing our mixture of bike lanes. And you'll see that there's even people who are trying to adopt Copenhagen style trailers here in Nanaimo. So at any rate, I got the notice that I'm out of time.
Shelley, you're muted again.
There we go. Joel, if you like, I'll give you another 15 seconds or something to talk about your e-bike, how it works, just sort of a little understanding about that. Just 15 seconds, maybe your top 4 words or phrases for it.
Well, the main thing that people need to know is that almost all the bike shops have switched over to selling either exclusively e-bikes or at least 50%. And when I was an early adopter, e-bikes were rare. So the aging demographic, which I'm of, 60 or plus, we're driving e-bike sales. So there are massive numbers of people buying, and they're buying so many that the bike stores aren't able to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And so city planners really need to know that people are changing their lifestyles.
Okay, thank you very much, Joel. And thank you also for talking about the Cycling Embassy of Denmark and those interesting pictures of what is happening in Copenhagen, and also about your some of the pictures you showed from Nanaimo, as well as your interaction with e-bikes and that sort of thing. Okay, on to our last presenter, last but not least, actually in-person presenter is Erin Hemmons. She is a cyclist, a Nanaimo City Councillor, and a mom. She loves riding and has commuted by bike in Vancouver, Halifax, and presently in the city of Nanaimo. Erin, you have screen sharing ability, and I'll let you go ahead as soon as you have that up. And good, and you're not muted. Go ahead, Erin.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Okay, screen sharing, here we go. Can you guys see this?
So you have 3 minutes.
Okay, so a lot to talk about in 3 minutes. And when I thought about how I wanted to spend this time with you tonight, I did what I often do is I got on my bike and I went for a ride. And this morning I went out from downtown and I went under the Pearson Bridge and up that horrible hill by the German Cultural Center onto the ENN. I went to the end to take a picture of the construction on Metro for all of you. And then I went back down Metro into the Parkway and eventually home through downtown. So why I share that route is to share that in about a 25-kilometer ride, I was competing with cars for about 5 kilometers of it. So Susan, I think you hit the nail on the head. We have amazing infrastructure here. And it's really, for me, it's about understanding what exists and using it. As Shelley said, I was a commuter in Vancouver. I was more of a pedestrian in Halifax. And here in Nanaimo, because I have to show up looking a certain way at a city council meeting, I'm not the best commuter, but I am a cyclist. I love to get on my bike and ride, and I do it every day. I do want to give a shout out to my colleagues. I have a number of councillors who are avid cyclists. Ben Gesselbrock, I don't think has driven to a meeting since the beginning of our term. Dawn is also a really good cyclist, and Cheryl and Leonard bought bikes when their term started. So we have a real energy and a real interest in this council for supporting active transportation. So I knew that Jamie would cover kind of the nuts and bolts of kind of, you know, how the city collects its data and uses it, et cetera. So what I thought I would spend my time is talking about how to develop and support a cycling culture in Nanaimo, and the caveat being that these are just my ideas. I was asked, Shelley, you asked me to talk a little bit about being the perspective of being a woman on a bike in Nanaimo. And, you know, I thought about it all weekend, and I don't, there's no difference for me. So I actually put it out to a few of my female cyclist friends this morning, and they all affirmed that cycling in Nanaimo is the same no matter what your gender. So 3 things I want to talk to you about in terms of creating and sustaining an active transportation culture. So the first is being aware and proud of what we already have and talking it up. So on the left here, we have the new intersection. Well, we're heading down Bowen Road, and as Jamie showed in his presentation, we used roadworks as an opportunity to really redesign that section of the street. The second piece here, this is pre-pandemic, but it's not just about people riding on the roads or in the mountains. Nanaimo actually has a really strong cycling community in terms of youth, and the BMX park and the Steve Smith bike park and the mountain bike trails are very, very well utilized in Nanaimo. So first, be aware and proud of what we have, and let's talk about it. Let's take every opportunity you have with your friends to share how great it is to cycle in this city. The second piece, and this is really important, 30 seconds, gosh. Participate, participate, participate. The city has a number of opportunities in terms of how we want to hear from residents when it comes to anything, but active transportation is one of them. And so every time you hear of the city saying, we want to engage, we want to hear from you, here's a survey, fill it out and emphasize active transportation as one of your priorities, because it's these documents. it's these documents that give council the license to greenlight active transportation projects. It shows us that the community really wants us to go in this way. So Reimagine was a perfect opportunity, and just some highlights from that, the How We Move section. Over 75% of survey respondents said they support or they say that active transportation is a good use of tax dollars. And the #1 active transportation priority, according to that survey, is feeling safe from vehicles. Okay, and the third, and this is the most important, is ride your bike. The pictures that Joel showed of Denmark, we're not going to be there in the next 5 or 10 years. And we can't, personally, I don't think we can wait for the infrastructure that exists in Europe or in those hotbeds like Holland. We just have to get on our bikes, because if we talk about active transportation as a city, it is simply a bureaucratic exercise until people are actually out there and using it. So the city is doing their work, and again, I'll share this council is very very interested in supporting active transportation, but people on their bikes furthers that agenda, possibly any more than we could. And oh gosh, 3 minutes is so short. I just want to say I have a $20 gift certificate to Delicados if someone can email me where this pink bike lane is. There used to be 2 in the city, now there's 1, and it's a very short little stretch, and if you know where it is, send me an email at my city email. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, I'm unmuted. Thank you very much, Erin. And thank you also for reinforcing in our minds that council is very much in support of cycling and active transport, and that we really need to get out there, participate in Reimagine Nanaimo, and be shown on our bikes or be seen on our bikes, so that the culture is there, and then it's much easier for the rest, infrastructure, et cetera, to come following. So our last presentation is from people who are not going to be physically present. It's a YouTube video done by 2 students in Nanaimo in high school. And it was posted on YouTube on November of 2020. And it's called Bike Lanes in Nanaimo. So Bill, if you could do the screen sharing for us, and we can see and hear the YouTube video. So it was directed and produced by these 2 students. And the only thing I know about them is that their names are L and L. So here we go. Oh, I think there's no sound, Bill. Can you check the sound? Okay, this is time for me to tell another joke. So here's a pedestrian stepped off the curb into the road without looking and gets knocked down by a passing cyclist. You were really lucky there, said the cyclist. What do you mean? That really hurt, said the pedestrian, still on the pavement, rubbing his head. The cyclist replied, well, usually I drive a bus. Okay. So we're almost set with the video. There we go. And screen. Perfect.
You know we like to go biking, helmets on, let's pump it up. Yeah, it sure beats hiking, but in Nanaimo something's up. I was riding through my neighborhood, coming back from school, and I saw this brand new bike lane and thought that's pretty cool.
So I upped my game and got in the lane and pedaled along without a care. But lo and behold, only 5 meters in, it ended, leaving me in despair.
What we're really trying to say, and we don't mean to dismay, but it kind of came to our attention. Bike lanes here are inconsistent, sometimes they're non-existent, and we have a few suggestions. Number 1, the ENN. We think it's pretty great. If it were longer, more widespread, then it would be in a better state.
Number 2, every road should be accommodating, a lane for every street. Then our town would be complete, because bikers here are disappearing.
And why is biking important?
Well, it keeps our city clean.
Less gas emissions. We're on a mission to make transportation green.
Yes. So there we have the voice of some of our young people describing what is great about Nanaimo and what needs to be developed, and because there is a lot of support from our young population, especially when they go out on strikes for a sustainable future and that sort of thing. So we do owe it to our young people to have this infrastructure in place. So as I said, it was actually, I read from Madeline Coe that it was submitted as one of the creative community submissions for Reimagine Nanaimo. So that was really wonderful that they did this. So now we have time to speak to each other and share our ideas about cycling and infrastructure in small breakout groups. So I think because the time is short, we're going to only have about 10 minutes. It's almost 8:15 right now, and I know I'd like to keep the time frame that we had mentioned at the very beginning as tight as possible. So we have already randomly put people into groups. So I think there's going to be 10 groups with 3 to 4 people, or maybe 9 groups with 4 people. So Bill, with his high skill, is going to do that for us. Maybe, no. Okay, so up to you, Bill. In your discussions, you'll have 10 minutes. And if you could please look in the chat to see what the questions are. There are 2 questions. What are the barriers to reducing GHG emissions through cycling? And the second question, what is your vision for cycling in the near future? So you should have on your screen now an invitation by Bill to invite you to a group. So just click on the join. If someone could just highlight what was discussed, the key ideas, and then we can just say in 30 seconds what your key idea was with the whole group. Okay, so if we could go now, that'd be wonderful. So hit your join and have a great discussion.
Hi, Bill.
Hello. I guess I'm the timekeeper here, so I might have to leave the room in about 9 minutes and tell people that I have 1 minute left. Oh.
I didn't catch the topic of the breakout room. I just clicked enter.
There was something supposed to be put in the chat. What are the barriers to reducing greenhouse gas emissions through cycling? And what is your vision for cycling in the near future?
And Jamie, I can see your message in the chat. Can you hear us? Perhaps not.
I'm guessing that's a no.
I guess not. So did you get those questions? They are in the chat. You may not be able to see the chat.
I can see them here.
Well, maybe I'll start by saying something. I think one of the reasons is that there is perception and some reality that it's not as safe as it could be. And that's a good place to start. There's been a lot of work done on increasing the infrastructure, but it's still not complete, and some people still don't feel comfortable.
Yeah. Bill, do you think that people need it to look a certain way in order for it to feel safe? The reason I ask that is I've been cycling forever, and I think I might have a different sense of what feels safe for people, because I'll cycle anywhere. So I kind of think, of course, we want to build bike lanes. Of course, all of the research tells us that more people will do that. But I also think we have a really great setup, and it's the safety piece is for me about perception more than it is about actual safety. And so I'm always curious about how we can change the perception of safety.
Well, I'm not really a cyclist. I just hear people who talk about it. And I walk around rather than cycle around. However, my opinion is that it's a question of education and information and sharing what are the safer bike routes.
Yeah.
I would agree, Bill. So I also am not a cyclist. I have a bike, and I've always wanted to kind of get into cycling, but I feel like I don't have enough education to be confident. And so even just thinking about the different, like you said, Aaron, like, what a bike lane looks like. When I think about a bike lane that has a physical barrier to traffic, I feel much more confident thinking about cycling on that infrastructure, and even thinking about, like, what if I have to do a left-hand turn? Oh my goodness! But if there's an actual separate path, that brings down my anxiety quite a bit. So I don't know if that helps as someone who's just thought about cycling and not actually. I work in Ladysmith, so I do most of my travel is with a car. Unfortunately, I live in Nanaimo and work in Ladysmith. So.
Yes, and of course, that's another issue, not having an easy transit connection to Ladysmith. However, we're talking about cycling.
Oh, it's all mixed in together, Bill.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, from a policy standpoint and a city standpoint, I agree with you, Sam, and all of the research agrees with you that people feel safer when they're actually physically separated from traffic. However, the cost of doing that is so prohibitive in terms of kind of the political capital you would need in order to make that a reality. It's just non-existent. Not in the way that, suddenly tomorrow you're going to feel safe on your bike. So I'm always curious. I ride with a group called Slow Folks, or I have ridden with them in the past, and they just amble around, and they find the best routes in the city, and they GPS it, and they share it with each other. And I tend to think that might be a faster way of getting people comfortable, is actually going out with people and showing them how to ride the streets and showing them how to stay off of Bowen Road on your bike. Don't go on Bowen Road on your bike. There's a few to avoid, and the cyclists know which ones those are. So I totally hear you and agree that separated lane is what we need. But I just have this anxiety in me that people are going to wait for that. And in the in the middle ground, we're going to miss the opportunity for people to be on their bikes because that's going to take a long time.
No, absolutely. And you know, it comes down to that education. If I had someone telling me, like, you know, or showing me if there's an app, or if there was like I don't know, we can't really gather in person, but you know, when we can, if there was like you know, different events or different meetups, that would be fantastic to get to see a different side of the city for would-be cyclists. You know, to have like a guide, so to speak, to support. To support that becoming a habit.
Then there's educating drivers, at least the ones that can be reached.
Yeah.
You know, I've almost lost my life on a bike once, and it was a driver who saved me. And it was a driver who was paying closer attention to the surroundings and what was happening than I was. So I'll always remember that. It was someone paying closer attention than I was that looked out for me.
Yeah,
But
defensive driving, or at least they did when I was learning how to drive quite a few decades ago. And I think it's the same with cycling. You need to be aware of your surroundings at least as much, if not more.
Yeah, I agree. What was the second? What's your vision for cycling in the near future?
Yeah.
Oh, my vision is just more people on bikes, more people. You know, one of the things that I don't think I got across in my presentation is that city planning happens over the length of years. Like, I don't know if you caught Jamie Rose saying it took 7 to 8 years in planning to get the Heroin Lane through. And so everything we're doing now, all of the planning is kind of happening. And really, because we do have a progressive council, I think that policy piece is being carried forward very well. What I would like to see is a stronger emphasis on actual riders on the road, using the infrastructure we have, and people not feeling afraid. I would cycle in Nanaimo over Vancouver and Halifax any day, any day.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's quite a few hills in Halifax.
There's big hills in Halifax.
I lived there about 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And of course, getting from Halifax to what was then Dartmouth would be quite a problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to close the rooms. We might have some time after I do. It says 60 seconds. Yeah.
Okay. Nice to meet you both and have conversation with you, Bill and Sam.
Thank you. Yes. Good to chat with you both.
Nice to meet you. I think you came to Pacific Gardens once during the election campaign, Erin.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're at Pacific Gardens. Okay.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I came with Tyler and Ben.
Indeed. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you in the bigger room, folks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, we have only 4 minutes to share. So if you could, I hope that people have added it to the chat. If we could have people just coming forward, you can unmute yourself and just give one key idea.
Okay, building a bicycle track on a Hammond Bay Road, because we discussed that in our group, that, you know what, Hammond Bay is a very critical thing, because a lot of people like to use the Hammond Bay Road for commuting, especially in the good weather time, because of the transit bus. It stops more often and a lot of traffic down there.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, another group. Thank you, Hammond Bay Road.
Okay. Nata, One thing that came up that hasn't been mentioned is
Yes,
getting some signage up to educate people about bicycle etiquette for the interface between bicycles and walkers. In Hemer Park, there's, the etiquette for horses, people, walkers, all that sort of stuff, and it tells you how you do it. And older people are startled by bicycles they don't hear and not being told. So we were talking about some signage and perhaps Bowen Park, and get a protocol together, like for cyclists to tell people that they're, for instance, going to pass on the left, and the person to put up their hand that they heard it, because some people have earbuds in and they don't hear. So yeah, so that was a suggestion. It hasn't come up.
Thank you very much, Maida. Signage, education, signals, and I've forgotten the other one. Anyway, thank you very much, Maida. So we'll get that in the chat. Would anyone else like to contribute? And if Maida, you could mute yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shelley, I just for number one, the GHG, the barriers to reducing GHGs, I just pumped in our 5 in chat, our 5 items, and the first one was really interesting. One, employer resistance, where an employer does not want to encourage or support the use of a bike for, in this case, a school district, school district outings, or where you're engaging with kids and you're going out somewhere. I guess apparently bikes are not supported.
Unsafe. So there's a safety issue, I know from my experience there too. Yes, so there's a perceived unsafeness. So that's one of their reasons for acting that way. So we've got to reverse that. Okay, thank you very much, Colin. Anyone else? Any other group? And if Colin, you could mute yourself. Any other groups?
I'll speak for the group I was in. I didn't know if I was going to speak, but the idea is, what are the barriers to, in reducing greenhouse gas with bikes is cost for a lot of people, and the physical storage at home, dealing with muddy tires. And so a bike share idea, which has been done in other cities, would make it more affordable. You could have different levels, like e-bike versus regular bike. You could have, it tie in with the bus pass system, and have, or like the rec center, a 10 punch pass, or a month or a year pass. Okay. So, that would, if we could just populate, the university and downtown and a few key places, just to see how it would work.
Yeah, wonderful ideas. Thank you much, Valerie. Okay, and we'll have probably time for one more, maybe 2. Anyone else want to come up?
So I'd be really curious, has anybody thought about actually putting in a good bike lane right beside the railroad track, so that you can get from the east to the west,
or north to south?
I guess it's north to south, without riding on a major road.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Francis. That's a good one to put in.
It doesn't look hard to me. Like, there's a roadbed there already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Francis. Okay, and one last one. I know we've gone over our 8:30. It's 8:31 right now. Is there anyone else who would like to contribute what their group came up with, one key idea?
Brian, KJ.
Yep. Okay, and Francis, if you could mute yourself, Francis. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. One thing that came up quite often in our group is people are out riding their bikes but don't have a safe place to put them when they will go in shopping or errands or into work. And that a huge prevention for people getting out of their cars. There's a lot of people go out for bike rides, but they don't stop and do their errands that way. And that would really cut down on transportation, or cut down on GHG.
Right. Okay, thank you. Excellent idea. Right. And I think we're going to wrap it up. And I noticed that in the chat, a number of people have put up their suggestions. So that's wonderful. And we are recording the chat as well, so it will be available to you. So I would like to now thank everyone for sharing their ideas. And then in a couple of days, you'll receive an email if you checked off that link saying that you'd like to have further communication with us, with a link to the recording of this event, a summary of your key ideas, and links to some current resources. We'll add some of those as well about cycling and infrastructure. I know that I've had a fantastic experience being here with all of you and having the opportunity to share our ideas, listen to those who are experts in the field and are on city staff who are working for us to do that. I want to thank all of you, all the presenters and all the oh, it's a not long night. Participants for your time and your valuable contributions. And I look forward to being together again soon and to further develop our capacity to act to build a robust, safe, and exciting cycling future. So good night. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. It's been really interesting, and we will do another kind of forum in the next few months or couple months. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, babe.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Thanks, Jamie.
Shelley, you
Yes.
you did an awesome job.
Oh,
you
thanks,
did,
Sharon.
you look really good. Sorry I was late. You look really nice. You did.
I scrub up nicely, right?
You scrub up nicely, but you came across really well. So well
Okay.
done. You did a good
Well,
job.
It was
few
superb.
trip ups.
Yeah,
just superb.
Few trip ups, but anyway.
That's okay.
Oh.
For that remark.
Did you
I'll
like
give you a chat later on. Okay,
Okay.
take care. Bye.
Thanks, Sharon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.